Hello, everybody, and welcome to Brainstorm Brewery. I'm back. It's me, it's Corbin. I know you all missed me last week, but I hear it was a pretty fun time without me for once.
What?
No, I mean, usually you guys just have a terrible time when I'm gone. So, but I heard last week you had fun for once.
Did you? Did you listen to the podcast and actually hear that?
Of course I didn't listen to the podcast.
Why not?
Anyways, welcome back. I actually listened to it the week before when I was on. I did. It was, and I just put it on, and then it just kept playing. And you know, an hour later, I'd listen to it. It's weird. I don't know how people do it, to be honest.
How people listen to this podcast? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, basically. Anyways, I know why they listen this week. This week we have a guest. Welcome, everybody. Say welcome to Shaheen Soorani, guest podcaster extraordinaire, from what I understand. Very well known on the Grand Prix SCG tour, as well as the Pro Tour / Mythic Championship / soon to be Players Tour / Mythic Invitational / I don't know, Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever they call it, all the things.
Yeah, it's really hard to keep up with, but I'll just, whatever it is, I'll just keep being mediocre.
Did you play Yu-Gi-Oh?
I can.
No, that was just the next thing I thought of. I mean, I just yeah, no, it's all the same at this point, right? Look at our cards. I think our cards are actually closer to Pokemon. Before the cast, I was trying to, because this is the set review tonight for Throne of Eldraine, which, by the way, is pretty hype, but I just can't figure it out. There's so many versions of cards. There's so many collectors. As DJ said, I'm an old man yelling at a cloud, and I mean, that seems pretty accurate.
We went over this in a previous episode that you haven't listened to.
I think that might have been the episode I listened to, but I still didn't understand, so you must have done a terrible job explaining it.
Well, it didn't look right.
Or you have a terrible
I get the
job
same criticisms anyway. I'm always just complaining about what could have been and what was. Don't worry about it, man. It's fine.
I don't know. This Return to Theros set looks sweet.
Yeah, the one about to come out.
No, this one. This is Return to Theros. Every card has 8 mana symbols.
And it's an enchantment. There's a bunch of enchantments.
Yes, there's legendary artifact enchantment, equipment, legendary archer, rogue, legend.
Look, I don't know about you guys. I actually am pretty hyped about Throne of Eldraine. We're going to go through it tonight, talk about the cards everyone's excited about, what we think has some potential financially. And Shaheen is the control expert here, so I'm sure he's ready to tell us all about the mono red cavalcade deck.
Yeah, I feel like last time I was here, I really guided your listeners to appropriate purchasing, so I can do it again.
Well, I was trying to remember that because longtime listeners will remember you, and you did. You got one of them right?
It was a 50-50 shot. It was Torrential Gearhulk good, Smuggler's Copter bad.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was, it's not like, one of those cards was actually removed due to how ridiculously good it was, so that's fine.
Look, man, you got there on Torrential Gearhulk.
Well, think about it, too. So far, 2 cards have been known for that, and Preordain both have been banned in different formats, so.
Wait, you said Preordain was bad?
No. Not only did I say it was bad, I went on a campaign against Preordain back in Standard, and
I was so unaware of this.
I wrote many articles in a row and breaking out like my Excel prowess, and I was talking about deck threat density and talked about how having more dense more counter threats would be superior to control. I was just wrong about everything.
It was the stock mana theory of your time.
You were controversial. And controversial.
I honestly would not have gotten hired for the company I work at currently if I didn't rail against it. That's when I actually got hired, like full time anyway.
Well, you know what? As a content manager, I appreciate people willing to take stances. And the most important thing is if you're wrong, because you will be wrong, as long as you're willing to own it. That's what matters, right?
Oh, yeah. I was hella wrong. Yeah.
Fortunately, we're never really wrong on this podcast.
We're just not right yet.
Yeah, correct. That's the way we look at it. If we ever tell people to buy a card and then that card becomes a bulk rare, or you still have your 97 Splinter Frights, it's just you should just buy more.
Did y'all the reason I bought a bunch of Dovins, right? In the last set?
I doubt it.
No, I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure it was.
Blame not us. Blame the expert we had on for whatever set review that was. It was probably Cat. Blame Cat.
Right. This is why we have people on so they can be a scapegoat. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for being willing to put your neck
if we're
on the stump
wrong
again.
Yeah. If we're wrong, all we have to do is say we were influenced by the pro, because we're just finance people. We don't know any better. But if we're right, we get to claim credit. That's basically how this whole thing works.
I respect that. I respect that. I got a doozy for you guys too. A list of doozies, actually.
Okay, well, I mean, heck, let's get into it then.
I haven't been doing this for 7 years, so that I can be accountable for my bad decisions.
All right, so for those of you who are listening, this is, I believe, our first set review since we were sponsored by Channel Fireball. So everybody who's coming from the Channel Fireball entrance, welcome. If you haven't heard before, we try to look at the set in a different way. You're not going to get a list of grades from us. We've tried all the formats, but you're not going to get a list of grades. You're not going to get a top down this of that. We're going to talk about the cards we like, the cards we think have financial opportunities, and even the cards that we think.
No, Corbin, you missed it.
Okay.
We're going to grade each card according to a Kellogg cereal, and then that cereal is going to be graded according to a specialty yo-yo brand, and then the yo-yo brands will have an alphabetical lettering. And then that's going to give you a code key. You have to Google a certain information. That's where you get the numerical grade for the card.
I have to say,
how many
DJ,
Kellogg cereals can you even name?
I was thinking like 0, but also you should never design escape rooms. None of that was on theme. You were just all over the place, man. Your theme has to be consistent.
I bet he can't name 6.
That was the worst cipher I've ever heard.
Name DJ 6 Kellogg cereals. Go.
Apple Jacks, Frosted Flakes, Fruit Loops, Lucky Charms. No.
What, does Jason even know? I was trying to find a list. Did you?
What do you mean?
Frosty?
Do I even know?
Well, I don't know.
The first 3
I'm from Battle Creek, Michigan, dude.
Does that mean anything
that's
to
the
me?
center of Kellogg.
Oh, okay.
Where do you think my dad worked growing up?
I was gonna say, didn't you know that Jason's dad was like
he was vice president?
Wait, are you serious?
How do you not know that? We podcast together.
We've mentioned this like 8 times.
Yeah. Okay, first of all, that's never been said to me in my life. Second of all,
you're wrong.
I assume his last.
When I talk.
What? Now you sound like my wife. Come on.
Yeah,
man.
I don't have sex with you and you don't listen to me. I am your wife.
Well, that didn't take long, I guess. Okay. All right. I just assumed
Lucky
your last name had to be
General Mills.
Had to be Kellogg to be the vice president of Kellogg or something.
What?
Yeah, that's how it works. John Harvey Kellogg adopted 12 children and named them all Kellogg. And then they're all the vice presidents for 120 years. That's how all of this works.
That is generally how it works in this country. Give me a break,
Everybody
man. It wasn't
knows
that
about
far
Mark
off.
Facebook, you idiot.
Mark Zuckerberg is the CEO of Facebook, not the vice president.
Yeah, get it right.
It's Bob Facebook who's the vice president. This is the episode I wanted to have. As soon as we start talking about cards, I'm going to lose interest.
Steve Apple.
Steve
Apple. Wow. Oh, man.
Don't get political. We promised we wouldn't.
Yeah, we have to keep the half of the listeners who haven't already been scared away.
Hi, I'm Jim Amazon. No, not vice president of the company, the vice president of the fire.
Well, anyways, I would like to talk about how much I like all the merfolk in this set. Unfortunately, I can't do that because they're all trash.
What?
So, what does everyone else like?
You're wrong. Again, for like the 8th time in 5 minutes.
All the merfolk are trash?
For me.
You think Emory Lurker of the Loch is trash?
Well, that depends. Is it going to go on my merfolk deck? No. Ergo, trash.
Then your merfolk deck is built wrong because it should be 100 cards and it should have lots of artifacts.
How does Corbin not have a merfolk commander deck?
I've thought about it, actually. I even started pulling cards at some point for the blue-white Sig, and I was going to put a bunch of weird combos into it. But I don't know. It doesn't seem good.
It's not.
Tatyova's a merfolk. Figure it out.
No, that's not a merfolk commander deck. That's just another blue-green land deck like all of them.
Morophon, so you can fit Jorian and Tatiana.
Now you're talking. That actually sounds more reasonable.
Tatiova. Yeah, do it.
That sounds cooler. You could just
then you play Prime Speaker Zagana for like 5 minutes instead of 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like the value.
There you go.
Anyways, I mean, let's start there then. Let's start with Emory, Lurker of the Loch. So for those who don't know, it's an $8 card. It's a 3-drop merfolk. It's a 1/2. It costs 1 less for each artifact you control. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top. Put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. You can choose an artifact in your graveyard and cast it this turn by tapping Emory. I assume this has EDH applications then, Jason, based on what you're saying?
I don't know if it does or not. I don't have any data to back that up, but I am personally very excited about this card. It's obviously not $8 because I don't think the infrastructure is there in standard for this to do anything, and like it's certainly probably can't do anything in modern. Correct?
What?
Back me up, somebody.
Seems pretty good in
This
modern.
card
You like
seems
this in modern?
bonkers in modern.
Seems pretty busted.
This card goes like infinite with Mistress Bauble and Jeskai Ascendancy.
I was fucking kidding. All right, that didn't translate.
You didn't use the sarcasm font, the SpongeBob tone.
I mean,
I don't think modern makes it $8.
You've played
No,
a stupid artifact deck or two, Shaheen. What tell us about this?
Well, the value of this card is dependent on the shifts of Urza. So if Urza sticks around as unbanned for the foreseeable future, then and this card will probably remain this amount of money. And then obviously as if this deck stays a staple without losing Mox Opal and the long game years to come, then it's going to be a very expensive card.
Do you need Urza, or could you build this some sort of like blue-red type deal with a Goblin Engineer? And
I think Urza is probably standalone the best or the most powerful card in modern. I don't see. I'm sure you could build other interesting decks with artifacts with this creature and Goblin Engineer, but honestly, like the Urza deck's the best deck in modern. Blue-white Urza now won the challenge last week or this past weekend with Canister crushing everybody with
I saw that
suboptimal version. And even before that, my teammate for Philly, he's been working on a version of this that was kind of under wraps and felt like he had a really good hold on it, and we're just like, God damn it. So because now obviously it was kind of secret, not really, it's only really the really in-depth modern players that knew this deck was a thing.
Which version are you talking about?
White Urza deck with paradoxical outcome.
Yep. I won't lie, that was my pick of the week last week. I wasn't on the cast, but I even picked some up because one, paradoxical outcome is $1 and seems broken, but I saw that version floating around. So
yeah, this card, there's only 2 options. Either Emory's going to be kind of mediocre in modern and not really break these decks and move to like a $5 card, I guess. But if it is a staple in both versions of Urza, either Stop for Sword or the Paradoxical Outcome version, then it's going to see. I mean, it has to see a spike at some point.
What I'm hearing is that Eggs never dies.
No, Mox Opal would kill it.
Yeah, I mean
would kill it in its tracks, and the deck would be unplayable. Honestly, it's because it does a turn 3 win, which speeds past burn, speeds past the Tron disruption, speeds past all the other quick aggressive combo decks. So if it does it on turn 3 consistently because of Mox Opal, we're back to KCI. They're ignoring the root of the problem, which has always been like Mox Opal.
It seems it would be pretty. I won't lie. In a world of Ren and 6 and Urza and just coming off of Hogak, it would be pretty wild if they finally banned a Mox Opal. But
it'll take a year. They're not going to do it for a long time because
they got to let the Stoneforge settle a bit.
They're going to let Stoneforge settle. They've already banned a card. People are already they banned 2 cards actually, back-to-back bannings. They're going to Mox Opal has huge monetary implications for banning. It would create near Twitter riots because it's just expensive. People losing.
Yeah, it's $100 now.
Yeah, and the decks that have
people wouldn't lose 100, they lose 400 like overnight.
Yeah, they lose 490.
Well, they probably lose 300, but you get the point.
Yeah, they lose even more than that because the decks that need Mox Opal would be shit when Mox Opal gets banned.
Yeah,
it's these decks like you can't play Affinity.
Yeah, well, to be fair, you haven't been able to play Affinity for like 3 years.
People try with like hardened scales and stuff, and it's still people still fire this deck up and have it. They're loyal to it. But once that goes, I mean, you just can't play the decks anymore.
Yeah.
All right.
It's going to be interesting. Let's move on.
Let's have like a buzzer or some amount of time.
PTI style here.
Yeah, but like here, I'll save us time. Oko the Trickster, don't pay 30. All right, so we saved about a half hour from a normal set review.
As well, and one of my articles passed, and I got blasted by the people like Sam Black and I forget who else is in that.
Because you didn't think Oko was insane?
Yeah, they think it's like the next coming. I'm like, are you kidding? Are you kidding me? Like, no. If Dovin wasn't the next coming, then, I mean, it's better.
Well, I mean, you definitely don't buy Oko the Trickster because that's the intro deck one.
Is that the 6 mana one? Oko Thief of Crowns.
That's what I was trying to figure out. Yeah,
They're both the same price.
I was just trying to pull it up to even see what it does. It's $25. The
intro deck one's pre-sale for $30 because it is just pre-sale prices that like one person bought one copy.
It's a placeholder, is what it's a placeholder.
I will say that a 3-mana Planeswalker going up to 6 loyalty is just very annoying.
Yeah, it's got to pass the. I mean, if you look at like Teferi, I know Teferi's not a mythic. Time Raveler, which is like the best 3-mana Planeswalker probably since Liliana. Card like that is relatively for how many decks played 4 of them in every format, like Modern Standard. The price was pretty reasonable for a while still. So I don't know. I think this card's going to prove itself before.
Teferi's a rare.
Yeah, I know it's rare. It's not mythic, but I don't think this is I don't think Oko is going to be sweeping through standard and dominating like a lot of my colleagues argued. So I think 25 is a good price for it.
What do they want to do with it?
Well,
the biggest list.
Go ahead.
The best list that I saw was the something that heavily focused on the troll, the big mono and green troll that focuses on food, because it's sort of like a Hogak-esque deck where you like dump the troll in your graveyard, have 3 food tokens on turn 3, and then sack them to play a free 7/6 Vigilance Trampler.
Yeah, I mean, it's also just sort of generically powerful in that, there are going to be aggressive decks where just making food tokens is a reasonable line. But there's the Gilded Goose, I believe it is, right?
Yes.
That's actually my pick that's one of the cards I like a lot. Because, it has climbed back up there. It was pretty low. It came out at out of the gates at $3 to $4. Now it's more like 6 or 7. But I mean, it's a 1-mana, it's a Birds of Paradise in a lot of cases. And it gives you a turn 2 Oko and then Oko pluses. And then it can immediately just give them a food token to take their best creature, and it's turn 3 or whatever, and you still have an Oko.
Okay, Gilded Goose is like $8. How do you feel about it at that price?
I mean, I don't think you buy it. I do think coming out of the gates it could go higher. I mean, it is trending up, and if it were to have a good weekend, it could be in that $10 to $15 range for the first couple weeks. That said, I don't know yet whether I don't love it at that price. I'd be happy to trade for it and pick them up at the pre-release. I don't think you go buy them, but I think it has a lot of potential.
I have a card that I think that I would hedge towards buying it rather than not buying it.
Okay, I'm interested.
I like Embercleave because this card reads as though it is a 9-mana spell when it could actually be like a 3-mana spell.
Yeah, it's a Temur Battle Rage.
Yes, and it's mythic. And I think that this could see play in the just aggressive early weekend Knights deck. So I liken this card a lot to a Guilds of Ravnica card that did nothing, which is Dream Thief. But that is another card that it was like $3 or $4 pre-sale. You could probably pick up a set for like 12 to 15 on TCG Player. And that card did nothing. But in the world where that card does do something, like, your bet is much more rewarded than your losses if you lose. So, like, Embercleave is a card where if I'm a standard player...
You meant Dream Eater, right?
Is that not what I said?
Dream Thief is a common.
Okay, yeah, Dream Eater. Dream Eater's the Nightmare Sphinx thing, right? Like But that's, like, or March of the Multitudes. Those are both, like, $4 to $5 pre-sale mythics that if they're in their deck, they are 4-ofs. And they just... Week 1 deck lists come out and there's 2 in the top 8, and that's what everyone gravitates towards. So I like these $4 mythics that, if they see play, are 4-ofs, and then you're heavily rewarded if you are a standard player who wants to get cheap play sets for the 2nd and 3rd weeks of standard. If you want to just roll those dice, I think that your reward is outpaced. Or your reward outpaces your loss if you are just that kind of person who's like, I have $50. I want to throw it at stuff from Eldraine. I don't want to buy a box, but I want to throw it at stuff. I want to throw my 20% of the mythic deluxe super special Ancient Mew edition towards something relevant instead of collector booster garbage. So I like Embercleave, and I like just other $4 to $5 mythics that see plays as playsets in their respective decks.
Sure, yeah. Okay. I mean, speaking of Shaheen, you said you had some spice. So what cards that people aren't talking about yet, do you think we should be looking at?
I guess in order for me not to look like a fool, I'm gonna start with my safe pick.
Okay.
My safe pick that I think is never going to drop significantly below the price, but I think the ceiling is low, but the floor is already there. Is Murderous Rider.
Yes.
I think that card is going to be a 4 of in every control deck, every black-based mid-range deck for the entirety of Standard. It just has ridiculous synergy with control pieces like Teferi to be able to bounce it, and Tyrant Scorn, and being able to recast Hero's Downfall regularly, and it has lifelink attached too. So it's got the whole package. I think it's at $9-10 it's going to be. That's what the price will stay at for the entirety of Standard. I don't think it's going to go down, but I don't think it's going to go up. But I think it's a safe buy for every Standard competitive player that wants to dip their toes in.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Hero's Downfall was very expensive for a while, and then it got very cheap, but then it went back up to $10 or $12. So it's like, it is a card that can very easily just ride that wave of like 10 to 8 to 9 to 13, or whatever the week asks of it. Like Vraska's Contempt, right? Like Vraska's Contempt, yep. Until it was in I believe it was in an event deck at some point, but
yeah.
It was also just
it was always $10.
Like, it was right after release. People were like, "Oh, this is good. Format removal's fine." It was 10, then it was 6, then it was 16, and then it was 13, and then it was 15. It just rides that wave of like, you need this if you want to play removal.
Yeah, and Murderous Rider is just nutty, right? I mean, we just talked about how silly it is for 3-mana Planeswalkers to go up to 6 loyalty or whatever. But Murderous Rider is just gonna kind of be one of those cards that people just kind of have to play. Whether your deck even wants it or not, you just have to hedge against people playing, early Okos or late Chandras or just things like that you just have to have an answer to.
Yep, it's gonna keep that relevancy because Planeswalkers aren't going anywhere and they're getting better, and obviously it kills every creature too. So it's just like, it just has so much upside in Standard, and I think it's gonna be. Unlike Vraska's Contempt, that the mana cost is kind of restrictive. I don't think it's going to say it's like something from that same fate. But it'll definitely follow the Hero's Downfall trend more so. But I think it's a safe one. But for the riskier ones, I got a few preparing for this Mythic Championship. I always test out like the crazy decks first. I play Control, but I like to think outside the box for these tournaments. The first card that really struck me as possibly broken was Shimmer Dragon. It's a 6-mana 5/6 that has hexproof if you have 4 artifacts or more, and tap 2 artifacts and draw a card. It has the ridiculously difficult to kill clause that's required for a control finisher. It's giant. It blocks better than all. It attacks better than all. So if you have 4 artifacts, you're already not in a world where you're playing all these cheap artifacts like cantrip, and I can get into that in a minute. This card comes in with hexproof, and you draw 2 cards immediately just off the card advantage from tapping untapped artifacts. So I've already considered playing with Golden Egg and Guild Globe and a few of these.
Guild Globe, going deep.
A cantrip.
Yeah.
It's like I've got a kind of a skeleton built already, and I've played with it a little bit, and I think there's some promise there. These brawl cards are already going to have a pretty hefty price tag, but if they ever go into a 4 of or 3 of into a Standard deck, I think it's going to be pretty outrageous. Not Shimmer Dragon, but there's another card in the brawl area, the Alela, Artful Provocator.
Is that the Esper one?
It's the Esper Fairy.
Yep, and it follows the same. It would go into kind of the similar shell that I was describing, because whenever you play an artifact or enchantment, you get a 1/1 flyer. It's got killer stats for 4 mana. It has flying, death touch, lifelink. So lifelink is in a control deck, as you guys know, is just like the icing on the cake. That's what you're really looking for. in these kind of like lower costed win conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And then it has the Mountain Mentor style ability if you're building a deck around it. So there's a lot of cool things about this card, and it's mythic. So if you're playing 2 or 3 of these in your deck, it's going to be.
Well, the weird thing is that the term mythic for cards that are pre-constructed deck only is really strange, because the only copies of this that exist are either in the Brawl precons or out of collector boosters. So
there's one copy of Shimmering Dragon for every copy of some common.
Yes. Well, and then those ratios are skewed further by the collector boosters. So it used to be that like Thought Vessel equals like Felden or whatever the commander. I guess Thought Vessel would equal Daxos or whatever for a better example. But like Thought Vessel equals Daxos times 5. So there's 5 as many Thought Vessels as there are Daxos out there. But the Brawl decks are skewed by the collector boosters. So that's another one where like allocation and player demand over the collector boosters and over things like the deluxe edition will heavily impact the price point of all of these like uniquely first time cards, just because this is something they've never done before. We always, as like people who tend to dip their fingers into the finance area, we use trends and data and historical precedent to make estimations about where things will go. But like the collector booster is just
got any.
Yeah, the collector booster, we just kind of have to shrug and be like, well, let's see, this is our guinea pig, this is our petri dish, let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify for everybody listening at home, the Brawl decks are pre-constructed decks, but they're also legal and standard.
Yes.
And in addition, you can get some of the Brawl exclusive cards in the collector boosters. You can get
all of the Brawl exclusive cards in collector boosters.
But only collector boosters, not draft boosters?
Correct.
Okay.
Alila Artful Provocateur will never be in a draft booster pack.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, this is actually interesting to me because we talked about this when they first did Planeswalker decks a couple years ago, or I don't know.
Kaladesh was the first.
Yeah, whatever. I'm old. I just to say a couple years ago for everything, give or take 5 years, basically. But we talked then about how dangerous, how we didn't like the precedent because, yeah, these Planeswalkers all suck. It's no big deal. But the natural trend of any of these things is to make the things better, not worse. And we worried if any of them do break through, because that's the only way to get them, they're going to be more expensive. And then basically, you know, to an extent that came through with Nexus of Fate.
Yeah,
although it is worth noting there's more
true name dilemma.
Yeah, I mean, worth noting there were more Nexus of Fates in print than Nicol Bolas's. There were more buy a box promos than there were of any given mythic rare out of course at 19. But this is basically that fear we had realized, where if Alayla or any of the other cards does become a 4 of or anything in a deck, you can only get it in the precon, and that they'll just print more precons. I mean, they'll use it as
they've already announced that they're going to do a second wave. Because here's what happened: they put Arcane Signet in these decks, and every commander player said, "Well, I need one of those for every deck I have." And they said, "Cool. Well, here's a $35 Brawl deck you got to buy." And everyone's like, well, I guess we're going to have to buy the Brawl decks. Then they're like, oh, we didn't print enough. And they're going to be super scarce. And then they're going to get bought out. And they're like, oh, we're announcing a second wave. So, like, this was... Whether or not a card from the Brawl decks breaks standard, I think is immaterial given the Arcane Signet bottleneck.
Yeah, I don't like the way... I'll just say, without getting too deep into it, I don't like the way it's trending. I really don't like playable standard cards that are only available in pre-constructed decks, period, or $30 boosters. But you're right. I mean, you brought it up and you're the player we should trust to know about Esper cards. But yeah, that is a mess of abilities on that thing.
Yeah, and I mean, they're all super tied to a control strategy. Like the entire card was created and felt like these are the keywords I would want on control win condition. And if you look at the cards in Esper, in this artifact deck I'm kind of building, you have all these artifacts that cantrip, but then you also have Othakaya as a 3 or 4 of that's an enchantment that triggers it, which is just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a lot of ways to build a deck like this in standard. So I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be if it's the same rarity as Shimmer Dragon, because they're all just this pre-constructed Brawl deck. It's going to create Well, no, I guess you're right. If they bottleneck an Arcane Signet, then it doesn't matter. They're going to be selling out.
It's all the same, right? That's the thing.
Well,
They're
that's-
all the
Well,
same.
at least there's a signet in every deck. There's not an Alayla in every deck.
The
There's going to be
signets are
4
in
times as
collector
many
boosters.
signets.
The signets are in collector boosters too.
Okay.
I mean, but we'd have no idea. Collector boosters is just this ephemerate thing that doesn't matter because we don't know. We don't like. From what I understand, I should have looked at the numbers for my store, but I don't actually even know how many we're allowed to order. I don't know how many of those collector's boosters are really going to impact the secondary market. This isn't the whole point of them to, especially when you start talking about something like Arcane Signet. The whole point of people buying those is because they want that card for their decks. They're not buying it to sell the Arcane Signet. They are more likely to sell the Alayla to get the Arcane Signet, but there's just not going to be that many of any of these out there. It seems like
until
the
the
brawl
second
just
wave
takes
comes.
off. Yeah.
Well, but
So
I think they're going to claim that Brawl's popular because these decks sell well.
of course they are. Of course they are.
And
Good for them.
I mean, they
Likely
wouldn't have
not.
made the
That
decks-
doesn't even matter to me. They can push Brawl.
They
if
wouldn't have
want.
made the decks if Brawl wasn't popular.
Yeah, they would have, because Gavin, remember when he was on the cast like a year ago, he said we put Brawl out there too early without any support.
Yeah, and they
maybe
also
should have waited.
design even the supplementary products are 6 months in advance at a minimum, more like 9. So like 9 months ago, there was more of a push behind Brawl. They just have to try. I don't really care if they push Brawl or not. It's all fine. But I do very much dislike the idea of playable standard cards being in Brawl decks. All right, I'm gonna make a note about one of the cards I like going into rotation here that isn't related to strictly related to Eldraine. But
This is
so
no
forgive
longer an
me.
Eldraine set review, and
I know,
all for
forgive
it.
me, but Chandra Acolyte of Flame to take the anti-control route here.
What's the rarity on that?
It's a rare. And it's $5 right now, but I do like it going up to 10, especially in the first couple weeks, because it goes in the mono red Cavalcade decks that are just everywhere on Arena. That's a very easy deck for people to build, but it also goes into all the elemental decks with Risen Reef.
It's really good with Reef, yeah.
And it's also not all that bad, even when you're just using it to basically flash back a shock or another removal spell. It just fits into a lot of decks. So at $5 here, I mean, we're not doing pick of the week this week, but I like that because of the decks that seem to be good going into rotation. And for that, I would recommend picking up your Cavalcade of Flames out of your bulk as well. Thinking of breaking bulk here too.
Speaking of breaking bulk and pick of the week, we are doing break of the bulk and picking of the week, but we are putting them on these spreadsheets this week.
Well, there you go.
Which are only available to $10 and up patrons at patreon.com/Brainstorm Brewery. So we are giving people a bonus pick of the week. So we normally don't do them, but we are doing them, and it's bonus content. So we didn't do them before, but we're doing them now, and they're on the spreadsheet.
All right, there you go. So, all right, Shaheen, what I like where you're going here with this artifact deck. I'm gonna actually need you to ship me this list, by the way, so I can do something besides play Teamer Elementals. I had to grind so much mastery on Teamer Elementals. I'm ready for something else, man.
It's really got like a lot of potential. I mean, I was hoping when they first spoiled and showed a few of these new artifacts, I'm like, okay, like glass casket, something like that. That looks kind of innocuous, but it's actually a key piece. And it was pretty early on. I'm like, all right, we just need a couple more of these, and they really starved us on the ones that followed. Like Vantress Gargoyle is another card from this set. It's a rare 5/4 flyer for 2 that can't attack unless they have 7 cards in their graveyard, and mills can't block unless you have a handful of cards. But it's a pretty powerful card, I think, in general, in this strategy too. So there are a lot of, even though I didn't get the cantripping artifacts I really wanted, there's a lot of solid standalone artifacts like this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like this deck, it would be a huge Throne of Eldraine, have a huge number of those cards in the deck. So, and it would uplift a lot of cards that were kind of maybe low. And back to like Oko, like the deck I have is an Esper build of the Shimmer Dragon style strategy.
Uh-huh.
There is a blue-green build I've been working on too that has Gilded Goose and Oko to produce accidental artifacts in abundance rather than kind of focusing on the cantripping ones. So it definitely has potential, and you know, like I said, if it's the rolled extra $35, whatever, is going to be pretty expensive to build.
Right.
All right, we've talked standard, we've talked modern, we've talked brawl. Jason, what are your commander picks for this set? You said you had cards you wanted to talk about.
I had cards I want to talk about that I don't necessarily think anything is great for a commander in the set per se. I had to write about 10 cards for Cool Stuff Inc. this week, and I struggled to find 10. And I even talked about stuff like Cauldron of Eternity that's not even that great.
Did you talk about the Great Henge?
I mean, the Great Henge is like it's pretty obviously just like a good card in Commander.
Yeah, I like that card.
But like Hushbringer is going to be nuts, and I don't know what other formats that'll impact, but I think that's going to be good in EDH. I like Deafening Silence. I think Mirror Maid's pretty nuts. Piper the Swarm's good because it gives mono black rat stacks a way to take their creatures. I like Covetous Urge a lot, but at the current prices, there's not a ton of stuff. I only found like 5 cards under $5 that I think have upside, and they're not all necessarily predicated on EDH either.
Okay, well, what are those?
Well, here's my 5 under 5 real quick. Tell me if you guys agree with these or not. I like Ironcrag Feet.
I like that card too.
It's a $1 right now, and it's one of those cards that like if it gets picked up in something, it'll be a 4 of, and if it doesn't, it'll always be like a casual card that'll be like $1 or $2 just because of like how splashy it is. So I think you almost can't lose buying these at $1. So I really like Ironcrag Feet at $1, and I think if it gets picked up, it's a 4 of. Sorceress Spyglass just seems like a card that, like, if there's going to be a lot of Planeswalkers running around, as soon as Ixalan rotates, we might need something like that. And again, that's $1.
I won't lie to you. I was not aware that was getting reprinted until just this moment. That's pretty sweet. That card's great to have in Standard.
I think so, too, with Planeswalkers running around.
Yeah, that's one of those cards that is really just nice to have in the format. That's a play design card to me.
And the problem with it is there's lots of copies.
Yeah. New art, though, for whatever that matters.
Yeah.
It's sweet art on this one, actually.
Here's a controversial one. I like Outlaw's Merriment, actually. It's just one of those cards that, like... the problem is, like, if it's not good enough for Standard, it's going to be way too slow for EDH. It doesn't really impact enough. But I kind of think that it's just going to be one of those cards that just, like, farts out value, and it's going to be really tough to...
Robin Hood Tribal.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Here's one that I'm surprised is this cheap. Is probably the best 5 under 5 pick I found is Fabro Elder. I'm really surprised that Fabro Elder is that cheap. It is in white, which sucks. So it's not like Bloom Tender, but at the same time, it's not super not Bloom Tender. It's a Tree Folk, which means it probably gets in a 3-color deck at least. I think this could be tapping for 3 mana in EDH.
So yeah, what it does is it's a 1 green and a white. It's a 0/0, but it gets +1/+1 for each color among permanents you control. So it's always going to be a 2/2 by itself. Has vigilance, and then it's Bloom Tender.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right.
I like how you explained what the card does for people who didn't know what the card did by explaining that it is
a Bloom Tender.
Without
it's a Bloom
explaining
Tender.
that card.
Yeah. So it can
draw
tap
the rest
for
of
each color,
the fucking owl.
for each color among permanents you control. Add 1 mana of any color. So. Yeah, I mean, Bloom Tender.
1 mana of that color.
Yeah. So you're right. So Bloom Tender is what, $45 or something unreal now.
Yeah.
I really hope it's not actually. I thought it was 30. I just made up a number that sounded extreme.
It's 50.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, Bloom Tender is ridiculous. So yeah, I like this a lot too. Now, as a rare, it's basically.
I'm going to look up Bloom Tender on Channel Fireball because they're our sponsor, and that's what a good sponsee would do.
And speaking of, it is in fact Ship Timber on Channel Fireball, and anyone should go check that out. Orders over a certain amount have free shipping all month, and if I have to say, it has what I think is probably the best innovative modern content of any website anywhere. It's a series called Mining Modern, and Jesus. Everyone should really go check it out.
All right, I was going to be like, this pitch gets worse every week, but what you were actually doing was attempting autofellatio on the cast, and you know what? I respect the grind.
Yeah, thank you, man.
I talk about people pitching their own stuff like that on my podcast Director's Cut on They Say YouTube channel. Check it out. Channel's got it at 50. So, yeah, Bloom Tender's nuts, and Fabro Elder costs 1/10 as much. Again, it's got that white in it. so that sucks. You can't play it in every deck where you would play Bloom Tender.
Atraxa's like the big one where Bloom Tender really spiked too.
Yeah. So this is going in 4 or 5 color decks that, are going to have white. Because
what I like a lot about this pick, Jason, is that it's going to go down to, because it's, quote unquote, just the rare, but there's just so much going on in this set, and it's really not flashy, but it is absolutely going to be a commander card for a very long time.
It's also
forever.
It's also theoretically a modern card.
Okay.
Well, the biggest so hear me out. I have a friend who has been vigorously testing the Niv Mizzet deck.
Yeah, that deck is sweet.
The Niv Mizzet deck,
for the 5-color Niv Mizzet deck.
It plays the Niv Mizzet from War the Spark.
Yeah, it's Arkham's Astrolabe was a mistake.
Yes,
deck.
Arkham's Astrolabe. It plays Prismatic Vista. It plays Pillar of the Peruns, which is a card.
Pillar of the Peruns. Yeah, that's a card that goes to like $10 like every 2 years when people remember it's a thing.
Well, it went
this
to
deck is a real thing. Yeah,
it went to 28 a couple weeks ago, and there are a pittering amount of Selesnya cards that you can find off Niv Mizzet, because I was asked for Safe Right Quest this past couple weekends ago.
Me too, buddy. I sold some of those.
Yeah, and this Bloom Tender 2.0 is a Selesnya card that can fit into that slot and also curves into your Niv Mizzet.
Yeah.
That's true, actually. That's a good point.
Yep, Faber Lauder is way underpriced, and I think it's because, I don't know, this set is really top-heavy right now, and it's not going to stay top-heavy because there aren't that many $30 mythics in this set. A lot of the Planeswalkers are trash, if you ask me, so...
I've got a couple other 500.
This card's going to get very cheap and then come back up.
Yep, and my last one's Hushbringer, because that card is just...
But the art, Jason, the art.
Well, the art looks like garbage.
I've literally only seen people talk about the art. No one's talked about the card. Everyone talks about the art.
No, dude, I wrote the white set review for EDH Rec, and I was sort of like, hey, people will be excited because I haven't ever written an article on EDH Rec before, and everyone's like, oh, you didn't like the art. So, 100 comments about the art, so.
Yeah, of course. Shaheen, where do you stand on the art? This is probably the most important question you're going to get asked today.
I could care less. My cards have mismatched this, half are foil, some are...
Oh, my gosh. You disgust me.
I'm not saying you have to care about the art. I'm saying it's an eyesore.
You have to. All I'm saying is you have to have an opinion, man. This is Magic.
Yeah, it's an eyesore or you want to have sex with it. There's no.
This
in
is
between.
Magic on the internet. You can't say I don't care.
It looks like deviant art from 2008.
It's no, it's not appealing to the eyes. I agree.
This is an album of a metal cover from 1994, right, Jason? That I don't know about.
This is a Dream Theater album cover for sure, right?
I don't know what that means because I'm not old like you and Sean. But...
Pretty good accolades here, except for that one. That's the one obviously I see all over the place people complaining about.
Were you a 90s metal guy, Shaheen? What did you listen to, man?
Oh, man.
Listen, take it. Anyone guesses what he'd listen to in the... You're my age. You're 32.
Yeah, I'm 36.
That's 32.
I bet.
So you're like
Jason's
Jason's age.
Sublime. You listen to some Sublime.
Incorrect. No.
Ooh, okay.
Okay, I got this. Travis Tritt.
I don't even know what that is.
Good answer.
Randy Travis?
Randy Travis Tritt. Had they ever joined forces?
Soul Asylum.
Still have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, doesn't know Soul Asylum.
That was a reasonable guess.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. Don't worry about it. We don't need to open that up.
All
right. So that means cards.
Are you a juggalo by any chance?
I knew it. No, they lost him when they revealed they were a Christian band the whole time.
I didn't know what a juggalo was, and I explained it to her. It was pretty funny. No, I'm not that.
Oh, if you ever want to have a 2-hour conversation about juggalos, hit up Ray Future Pro Perez.
Oh, I love Ray Future Pro Perez.
Well, he's Ray Poker Pro Perez, but if you...
He is Ray Washed Up Pro Perez. Come on.
No, he's Ray, yeah, he quit. He's well before his prime, it's sad.
Well before his prime.
He's on that poker life now, but if you do run into him, he will talk your ear off about juggalos, which you won't mind if you're on an 8-hour car ride and there's nothing else to talk about.
I think I could listen to Ray for a lot of subjects for a long time. He's just fun to talk to. Ray, come back on the podcast, man. Quit poker. Get on this Magic grind where you can win literal tens of dollars and come back on the cast.
Yeah, and that's funny because I remember giving him a lot of crap when he revoked his. He wanted to revoke his like silver stamp.
Mm-hmm. He did. He's one of the only people who ever wanted to give it back.
He's a wild man.
He wanted to play. He said, "I came to game. I want to play in the PTQs at home."
Yeah, that's him. Well, the game missed him.
Yeah.
All right.
So back to forget the 90s rap I used to listen to. Let's go back to
Oh no. Not 90s rap.
Oh man.
That was a minefield.
I think I started my first CD I ever bought. Actually, it was a cassette tape. So it was
What? What's controversial about that? I bought like 10 cassette tapes before I ever bought a CD.
Oh man.
I bought a Michael Jackson in the 80s cassette tape when I was like 9. And then I was like, all right, I don't like this. So then I started listening to like 90s like grungy rock stuff, and then like
I knew it. I said Soul Asylum.
I said Sublime.
Sublime was closer. You're warmer with that. But then,
First CD I ever bought with my own money, Primus Sailing the Seas of Cheese. I was hoping you'd be like, oh yeah, I bought Primus too. I'm just trying to figure you out. All right, go ahead.
No, I think I got into it due to my area. I mean, rap is pretty popular around these parts. So, back in the 90s anyway. But yeah, so it was fun. I'm not really into the metal. It's not my thing. I do like to give Pakula shit about always. That's pretty much all he's good for on Twitter these days is metal references. So, no, that's good. These lands that I was trying to mention earlier.
Which ones? The castles or
the ones I want to get your expertise on.
Okay.
Castles that are going to see extensive standard play.
Yes, they will.
That's a price that I don't know. Like even like Castle Vantress, the blue one, that seems kind of mediocre.
Well, the blue one's the best selling one right now.
Oh, cool.
No, that's not correct. The green one's the best. It's the second best selling card in the whole set.
I'm assuming for its modern like implications.
I think maybe EDH people think, hey, you can turn
it's
6 mana into 7. It's amazing.
I mean,
it turns 5 into 6, doesn't it?
Yeah, it turns 5 into 6.
Yeah, so it's like obviously Primeval Titan.
It turns 5 into Primeval Titan.
But if you have a mana reflection, it turns 3 lands into like 12 mana.
So you're asking, what's your question about them?
The price of it, because it seems low for the cards. Yeah, maybe. I mean, they're obviously just rare, but they're going to be eventually. They're going to be 2 or 3 of in every deck that is on color. Like there's so little downside to these new 2-color decks. They're going to pop up in standard to playing maximum of these and Fabled Passes, like the lands that are in the $4 to $7 range.
How are these not legendary?
Yeah.
It's called Castle Vantress. It has a name. So it's fucking Valakut all over again. If it has a name, it has to be legendary.
I just learned that they're not legendary.
It is a Castle. It's the Castle Vantress.
Yeah. It's honestly kind of like inexcusable.
This is a change they made at the last minute. Yeah. It's clearly a change they made at the last minute. These were probably legendary through a lot of development, and then they're like, you know what? People are gonna. It's a feel bad if these get stranded in your hand. So I think they think people are going to play a lot of copies if they made them not legendary.
I'll say this. I think that right now, Jason was right. The set's very top heavy, and the value is going to have to go somewhere. I tend to look at something like Castle Embereth. I guess that's how you probably say it. That's only $2 right now. It's on the cheaper end of all of them. But that's the one that's just going to be your 3 or 4 of in the mono red go wide deck. That's going to be a thing in the beginning. That's the one I like going to 4 or 5 the most early. The green one is also very good. I mean, they're all good is the thing. So it's hard to say because they are lands and they don't go in every deck. They go in a lot of decks, but maybe not every deck. I do think that if you were to buy all of them at $2, you're going to hit on 1 or 2 of them going to 5.
I mean, you miss on the rest is the issue.
You do. But if you're a standard player, maybe that doesn't matter as much, right? And, if you're somebody who's trying to build the decks, or I don't know if this matters or not. If you're on Arena and you're trying to figure out what to spend your wild cards on, I think it's reasonable to complete sets of the land.
Yes, that I agree with.
Yeah, so I'm with you. Like, I don't think that $2 to $3 is necessarily wrong for them, but they could very easily be 4 ofs and decks, and then they're $3 to $5. The value is going to go somewhere. It's just a question of, in the first couple weeks, do we have some of the mythics hit and go to 30 or 40, or does it spread out more among the lower tiers? Like, I don't know what it is with this set. I don't know if it may be a function of the fact that Standard's actually been so dynamic for the past year, but it feels like we're going into rotation, even though there's been a Standard event post-rotation on Arena, because it only has some of the Eldraine cards. I actually have no idea what the meta is going to look like. So I don't really know if we're going to see a bunch of 1 or 2 color decks that play 4 of these and push the price to $4 or $5, or if we're going to see a bunch of 3 color decks versus mono red, and then they're all $1, so it's hard to say. But
I think we're going to see. I think the Fabled Passage out of all the lands, I know it's not in the same cycle, but that has gotten the least. It's gotten some hype, but it needs to have more. The card is very, very, and it's going to be. Not one deck have I built that doesn't have 3 in it minimum.
Yeah.
I have a spicy prediction, and if I'm wrong, no one will remember. But if I'm right, I'm going to look like a genius. The castle cycle. I predict at least one of those castles in 3 months will be less than Mystic Sanctuary.
Mystic Sanctuary is insane too.
I agree.
That card was a mistake.
A mistake, huh? That's language we reserve for Modern Horizons commons around here, sir.
No, Corbin, that card is insane.
It's
also very
it's
good in
Astrolabe tier.
It's broken in Pauper.
A while for it to be a mistake because in Modern right now, the format's so dominated by this Urza deck, and like you can't actually play control deck right now. Like control decks get mopped by the new Urza decks that just are so explosive and are pretty much immune to Rest in Peace and Stony Silence. So until that's
a real
fixed,
problem.
Yeah, until that's fixed, until something happens to change that, you won't. I don't think you're going to see the pure power of like Mystic Sanctuary, where you're fetching like Terminus, like people joke around about, on top of your library.
That would be legit cool if that was a thing, right? Because that seems like a sign of a good format. It's cool for the first few
weeks until it takes over.
Maybe. But Terminus decks are not that hard to beat if you figure out how to beat Terminus decks.
Yeah, it has to go into a deck, obviously, that has a good amount of fetch lands, that isn't impacted by a low basic count, and then you need to have payoff cards, obviously. So, like, you're not wanting to put, like, cantrips from all these combo decks on top of your library, but, there's going to be some really powerful control interactions with that card. But unfortunately, like, control is horrific right now in Modern.
This is fetchable.
It is.
It's very, very, very broken in Pauper.
And it comes into play untapped.
Most of the time. Some of the time.
It's finally my Moloku control deck is going to get there in Modern.
Wow, you're talking to Mr. Moloku Dirtle Control himself here, Jason.
Oh, man. Moloku was my first Nationals performance.
Wow, of course it was. I literally made that up, but of course it was true.
It was a sweet deck. And Moloku and like Crystal Shard
and islands. Okay.
You can ghostly flicker this in Pauper, guys. Nobody's talking about that.
Pauper's ruined right now until they ban Astrolabe.
Yeah, this card is very, very, very good, even if Astrolabe gets banned.
All right.
It creates very degenerate loops with like Ghostly Flicker and like blue is already the best color, even if after they banned 3 cards from it. Like it's not a good thing that this card exists at common.
Pauper, I remember like Snap and Daze and all those cards were really good. Obviously,
yes.
Daze and Gush and Probe got banned. That's what you needed.
Somehow those were all legal together. It was just such a silly format.
And Brainstorm and Preordain too.
We had Gush, Thwart, Foil, and Rising Waters, like all legal at the same time in Standard, and it was okay.
Yeah, that was a simple time, man.
Because you couldn't counter what was it, Apocalypse or whatever, Obliterate. Yeah, you couldn't counter Obliterate. So
Obliterate.
So right, the Thundercats decks would just blow up your lands. It was amazing.
I'm going to talk about a card here that's not under $5, but is my favorite card in the set. and see what you guys think about it. Once Upon a Time, if it's this is the 2 mana and green.
This card is overpriced.
Of course, it is. I agree. It's $15, right? If it's the first spell you've cast in the game, not just on turn 1 or whatever, like Chancellors were in New Phyrexia. If it's the first spell you've cast in the game, it's free. Look at the top 5 cards, you can get a creature or land. Frank Carson did an article on Channel Fireball you should check out about the actual math behind the card. And basically, his conclusion was that you can cut a land and a creature or whatever to play this. You can cut a land just because this card exists. The math says you can do that.
You can cut 1 land per 4 copies or 4 lands per 4 copies?
I think it was basic. No. It was basically like you can cut a land per 4 copies.
That's significant still.
I agree. It's huge. I mean, I'm really excited about it personally because it goes in my Emrakul deck in Modern, where I always either want to find a fetch land for my Lotus Cobra, or a Wimbrous Kites for the Hideaway, or a Mana Dork on turn 1, or an Emrakul on turn 4 to put it under Through the Breach. Like, it's so perfect for my deck. I think if you put me in a room and said design the perfect card for your Through the Breach Emrakul deck, I don't think I'd come up with something as good as Once Upon a Time. That said, I do think it's overpriced at $15, but I'm just curious to hear, Sean, what you think about and I know this is a little outside your wheelhouse, but it feels to me like this is just an incredibly, I mean, I'm going to say broken, but it's free a lot of times, right? But just an incredibly powerful card that they're giving to green decks, which don't usually get cards like this.
I think I obviously think there's very little upside to a card like this. It's either going to be, it's going to probably break things that, in decks that have Ancient Stirrings, and there's a lot of modern decks that I do not want. This
Neoform.
Yeah, Neoform is obviously the first one that comes to mind. Even Tron, like you can do some finagling in Tron, and it's been getting a little bit of hate that it won't be as impactful. But honestly, the Tron just needs to build Tron, and then they win after that. It's not like there's criticisms of it doesn't grab the right threats like Ancient Stirrings does, like can't pick up a card off it. It just takes a little bit of restructuring, and you can still get game-ending creatures against a lot of the formats.
Yeah, it seems like it probably works fine in Eldrazi Tron, right?
Yeah, Eldrazi Tron, I mean, your best cards are creatures and lands. So, and sometimes you want Eldrazi Temple instead of a Tron land, because you only have 1 Tron piece, and you can make that determination. So it's got a lot of upside. It's a scary card. I wish they'd stop printing free things.
Yeah, I won't lie. I'll say this, and not that anyone at Wizards listens to our podcast, but if someone at Wizards is listening to our podcast, I would actually really love an updated design philosophy from them. What are things that are truisms about Wizards of the Coast design? They think that free spells are bad for the game, and they think that shuffling's bad for the game. They just printed a fetch land and a free spell, on top of a cycle of forces.
Also, Delve. Somebody needs to put a sticky note on somebody's desk about Delve.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I actually would just really love an article from Play Design just telling us what the current philosophy is, because it's one thing when it's Modern Horizons, but now it's standard cards too. They had a format with Historic that was going to have no fetches in it, and they just printed fetch land. So I don't understand.
It's not even like it's in the Delve category too. Cheap spell, like reduced cost. Like with reduced cost, it should be made with extremely judicious process where you are weighing the overall eternal implications in older formats. So like that should be the process. And I know they probably have something similar where they test it, but they need to hire some more people or something to have additional support to do so, because that has not been done. It has not been done well.
I think I've talked about this before. I don't think it's an accident. I think I think the trend, someone posted on Twitter, they keep the numbers, like 3 of the top 5 sets that contribute the most cards to Modern 5.0s in leagues are Modern Horizons is by far and away number 1. War of the Spark was number 2. And like Core Set 2020 was number 4 or something. Like it's just not an accident at this point.
No, I mean, and the game is still increasing exponentially in popularity. And it's, I think that,
It's
people,
a feature, not a bug.
really the old school players are the ones complaining about the brokenness.
Yes,
because new
that's correct.
players and players that are, fresh to the game, the flashiness and the big wins and the watching what the boundaries can happen in Magic matches they enjoy those things. They enjoy turn 3 card and they like to watch, like as a viewership thing, even though we hate it, like it, because we know that that's not the back and forth push and pull style game that we love, So, they probably know what they're doing, but this is at least, like you said, the free thing. Like, we can all agree that, like, they don't need to explore that realm anymore. Like, this,
you're right.
things can cost mana and they're still fine.
They don't need to go down that adventure, is what you're saying.
Close that adventure down. Don't choose your own adventure. Let's shut it down, because if you look at the Urza deck that's completely broken right now, it's because there's like 16 free spells in there. And if you think about it, Mishra's Bauble is a terrible Magic card.
Oh,
yes.
Consider all the free things that have existed in Legacy and that have been banned in Modern. This is the last remaining card of its kind, and it's a 4 of in every deck.
Yeah.
In Death Shadow, they cut blue cantrips or look at the top card of your library and draw a card.
It's not even your library. It's target player's library.
It's actually just so bad too, because it creates a delayed trigger that just creates a bunch of rules like problems when people forget about it in the first. It's actually just horrifically designed Magic card.
But it's the last remaining piece, so people play 4 in all decks: artifact decks, creature decks, mid-rangey style decks that have Tarmogoyf. They still want to play 4 of these cards. It's just,
and they made it in 2006. That's the worst part. They're like, well, we would have made this in 1996 if we got around to it.
Yeah, they didn't learn their lesson in the last 13 years. All right, Shaheen, this is the most important card we're going to ask you about.
Questing Beast.
No. How do you feel about Escape to the Wilds? For those who don't know, it's a 3 generic and a red-green sorcery. 5 mana. Exile the top 5 cards of your library. You may play cards exiled this way until the end of your next turn. You may play an additional land this turn.
Is it a mythic or is it rare?
It is a rare.
So is this a top 10 card in the set or a top 5?
So you're setting me up.
No, wouldn't do that.
I'm not.
We just want you to tell us that we're pretty, and our preview card is good.
Just tell us our preview card is good. Come on.
You guys have a really good personality, all of you. Card is, it's
fine, right?
It's almost as good as.
We'll move the goalpost. Tell us it's fine.
No, I think you're going to have it in the bulk section, unfortunately. I don't want it. The problem is I can't even joke, because I don't want anyone to listen to this and say, oh, he thinks that card is decent, and go buy it.
He values his reputation. I just want everyone to understand, he values his reputation over making us feel better.
Correct, yes. Unfortunately.
Fair. I actually don't blame you.
Just tell us it's like Smuggler's Copter.
Oh, it's better than Smuggler's Copter.
Better than Smuggler's Copter, all right.
Standard.
That's true. This is never getting banned, so...
Is there anything else? We didn't talk about this. Let's talk about Garrick before we go.
No, I have a
I want to talk about...
I'm sorry. Okay, hold up.
Before
Apparently
we
we're not
go.
done. DJ, I thought we'd run through them all. DJ, let's hear your 505.
Went through one. So my 505 are Embercleave, as I already discussed. I think that mythics that can be played as 4-ofs in the first 2 weeks of Standard are very, very good if you want to gamble your money like that. I think that the reward outpaces the risk. I think that Fae of Wishes is going to go to bulk and then climb up to like $2, just like Mastermind's Acquisition did, because it's a wish card that takes stuff from outside the game, and it's a fairy, so people love that. Fervent Champion falls into the same category as Embercleave, where it's like Dirtle, Stromkirk Noble was $10 for 3 weeks. Feasting Troll King is a $1 to $2 card that I've seen a lot of lists floating around about on Twitter, where you go Gilded Goose, Oko, food pie things, and then you slam a giant big troll thing. And Castle Embereth at $2 to $3, going to $5. I think that is the most likely castle there. Set reviews are easy.
I actually agreed with most of those, so I'm glad we're on the same page.
Close out this notepad page forever.
Let's talk about Questing Beast, because that's like a big question mark.
Don't buy it.
But well, okay, sure. So I kind of compare this to Carnage Tyrant, and I think it might have a relatively similar price trajectory, just on the basis of this seems designed to take down like control decks. Like you're trying to
this is the answer to
beat
Oko.
the Teferi. I was gonna say Teferi, but yeah, sure, Oko.
I mean, both, right?
This
busted 3-mana plane.
So the picture I have in my mind is that somebody at Wizards who doesn't work on play design, like, handed over their set, and then somebody in play design scribbled up this card, slammed it down, and said, "You're putting this in the set, or I quit."
Or they're like,
that might be true.
Put some abilities on it. Like, I gave you a list of potential abilities for this card, and they're like, "Oh, you wanted one of those abilities? I put all 7 on." Oh no, my fire! And they're like, "No." A lot of people are saying the card's still not good. So the price trajectory for Carnage Tyrant, because none of you remember, was it came out around 10, but within like a month or two was 30. Went down to like 14, then back up to 30 again on the 1-year anniversary of it being printed, and now it's $7. So it went through quite a roller coaster there. So this beast, this questing beast, was never $10. So the question is, are people going to get blown out not buying this at 20 if they wanted a playset for standard? Do we see this going to 30 ever? Or do we wait for it to get to 10? Or do we never buy it ever?
That's a great question because it does have way too many words on it.
How many of those words are relevant?
A lot, I
mean, none of them are hexproof.
I don't know. Shaheen, what do you think?
I think it's a good card. I don't think it's revolutionary for standard. I think it doesn't really have a lot of these the really broken creatures of history when it comes to these style cards is like a 4-mana green creature. Enter the battlefield trigger that makes it so if it is killed on the spot, it did something, or leave the battlefield trigger, or it has some kind of resistances.
Right.
And this doesn't have any of those.
So you don't think haste sort of fills that void? Or
for a very specific deck, though, where if you're like a mid-rangey value deck with ramp creatures, the haste is kind of eh.
Yeah.
It's not I think obviously haste is like the best word on this whole card.
Right. And there are many to choose from.
There are a lot of words on this card, and it's unfortunate. It's like, you keep reading it, you're like, all right, where is the
downside? Yeah.
Card like piece of this, and there it just doesn't exist. So no.
I think.
So do you think this is closer to the price trajectory of something like Nullhide Ferox then?
Where it just dies.
Say that this card is really like leaps and bounds better than Nullhide Ferox. I mean, they're very similar where it comes to giant creatures that are very difficult to kill in combat, and obviously can block really well and outmuscle like cards like other creatures. So I think it's better than Nullhide Ferox, but not like much better. Not to the point where it would be, like double.
I'm starting to learn my lesson on 4-mana green creatures. I remember, this is going back a hot minute, but I remember seeing Deadbridge Goliath.
That was like a couple years ago, right?
A couple years ago, yeah, pretty much. Give or take 8. It was a 5-mana 4/4 from, I think it's from Innistrad or Dark Ascension.
It's from Return to Ravnica. It has Scavenge.
Return to Ravnica. Is that it has Scavenge. The same, that's standard. Yeah, and it had Scavenge. I was like, that's so big for 4 mana. It's crazy. And then it has value, and then obviously it did nothing. And then
I played that card as a 1-of. You shut your mouth.
Yeah, you got me. Nullhide Ferox even has hexproof, and it's $1. So like, slowly but surely, I'm learning my lesson on Dirtly Green 4-drops.
Yeah, like you said, it has a lot of words on it, but it's yes, how many are actually like good? And that question comes up. Like the last paragraph, is like okay.
I mean, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I think it's a good card. I don't think it's ever going to be $1, because of how unique it is in design. And
wait, you don't think it's 20 either?
No. I think that you're warm on the $10 mark.
Yeah, that seems about right to me as well. I mean, it has its place. I think, like if people are slamming Teferis on turn 3, or
Too.
It's what? I'm sorry.
The legendary creature, which is a huge downfall too. Like at least Nullhide Ferox you can have. That's not legend, is it?
No, it's not.
Yeah, you can have like, I think I remember playing against multiple. Like it's just like that's such a key piece of like standard playability is if it's legendary or not. It's just the critical mass you'll play in your deck is going to be lower, and it's always going to be like a 2 of or 3 of at the most. So it'll never be a 4 of.
All right. Okay. Is there anything else that you guys want to touch on? Any other cards?
No, mine were pretty much in that the brawl side right now. There's a lot of uncommons I like in the set.
Mm-hmm.
Really good uncommons, but not for value, just for playability.
What are some of those? Go ahead and feel free.
I really like Drown in the Lock for modern, and I like it for standard also. I think it's one of those cards that people are going to pass over. It reminds me kind of of D-Spark, where it's a 2-mana spell, but it's going to be really great in the late game. And Drown in the Lock is like in that same spot where turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, you're going to get really good bang for your buck here with this card, and it's really useful in the control matchups, and then not dead in the aggro matchups.
Hear me out, Modern Mill.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if this card
is definitely goes right in that deck.
I'm hesitant on that point because
I mean, look, I don't know if Modern Mill even wants a card like this.
Well, that's the thing is like the deck has enough interaction already. I think the deck just needs like higher number lightning bolts, like higher value.
Yeah,
like you need your glimpse to hit like 13 or 14 cards, and it.
Right, I agree.
No, because it's super hyper casual mill. Like it's insane for like the 78 card unsleeved mill deck.
I'll say this though, DJ. We talk about that a lot on this podcast, and we have for a long time. I think the introduction of Commander has very nearly removed those people from the internet.
No, it hasn't. You're
it has not removed them from Magic. I do think that the people pre-ordering cards on a website is more likely to be playing Commander than they are to be playing 78 card casual. The 78 card casual players who come in my store don't even know when a new set's coming out.
I have data that argues against that, but I can't speak.
I mean, that's fine. That's fine. Like we're all talking about our own anecdotes. Like I believe, or you say you have data. I'm willing to believe that.
I have data to support that those players still buy and pre-order cards in droves, but I cannot speak more about that. Really.
Okay, fair enough. In my experience, if people come to the store like that, are they literally were like, oh, there's a new set coming out? Or I heard one of them when they were the other day asked, War of the Sparks, the newest set, right? And it's like, those are the people. But hey, I actually love data, so that's good to hear. I'll throw in one last one. It's $1, and I don't think it matters much for now. And I do like it more long term. But it's got a sweet name also. Dance of the Manse is $1. It's a X blue-white sorcery. Turn X artifact and or non-aura enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Converted mana costs X or less. If X is 6 or more, they're all 4/4s. So I mean, this just seems you don't like this card. I mean, one, it actually kind of has some combo potential in Modern if you need to bring back a couple of things.
Where are you getting all that mana when you're dying on turn 3 to Urza?
I mean, right. I understand, but I'm just saying that is a thing that exists and could exist in the future. For instance, something like the Dice Factory deck, that's the kind of thing that it could eventually find a place in or something like that. But it also is just generically good. It's a mini replenish, but it's also a mini open the vaults. Like it's just got a lot going for it.
What Corbin is saying is this is going to go from $1 to $2.50 when he plays it on Mining Modern.
I wish, man. I wish I had that kind of power.
I like Chittering Witch in the long term.
What does the Witch do?
It is a 4-mana 2/2 human warlock in black. When it enters the battlefield, create a number of 1/1 black rats equal to the number of opponents you have. Pay 1 in a black, sack a creature. Target creature gets -2/-2 till next turn.
So it's just a piece in the rat deck long term.
Yes, you just flicker it. And it's just ET. It's like Sengir Autocrat, but better. Mm-hmm. I play Sengir Autocrat in Commander decks, and I am happy about it because it is a 4-mana black creature that makes 3 more black creatures. And this one does that, except they're also 1/1s, and those tokens also don't die if you kill the witch, and it is also a repeatable sack outlet. It's $5 right now, so don't buy it, but, like, it is a card that is in the Brawl decks, so you have to, like, scale your expectations of pricing based on the collector boosters and the amount of data and supply that comes out towards the brawl decks. But it is a card to keep your finger on the pulse of in terms of like, oh, this is $2, buy a bunch.
Yeah.
Because then it turns into like, oh, Phiomancer.
I think Grumgully's cool, and I wish that there were more creatures with persist than literally just Woodfall Primus that could go in a Grumgully deck.
Yeah.
I think they knew what they were doing. They don't want somebody looping Murderous Redcap in turn 3 on EDH and killing somebody.
Yeah.
You can't even do it with Safe Right, whatever. The 2/2 Vanilla Persist. Whatever it's
Oh, the Safe Hold Elite.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go, everybody. Enjoy your pre-release this weekend. Thank you for listening. Remember, go check out all of these cards we've talked about on channelfireball.com. You can get your pre-orders. No ship September. It's Shiptember.
For like the last 3 days, you never mentioned that.
Well, of course, man. Oh, we've been talking about it for a few weeks. Anyways, you should definitely go check it out, everybody. Thank you for listening. Shaheen, thanks again for guesting, man. Tell us, where can people find you across the internet?
Well, I am an old man, so my only social media outlet really is Twitter. So hit me on Shaheen MTG, and that's where you'll find my various content that I work with.
All right. Well, thanks again, man. This way, we're very happy to have you on. This way, whatever goes wrong, it will all be your fault when people tell us how bad at this we are.
Fantastic. When everyone buys all those brawl decks for their standard staples, you got it.
Yes. All right, everybody. This is Brainstorm Brewery. Thank you for listening. Enjoy your pre-release, and we'll see you next week.